Hey y'all, Toad here. Well, got a few words about the contest and the next steps. Yeah, I said it was going to end early in April. Well, frankly, it's not. I ended up with a bunch of stuff to do. There's going to be some more woodworking, including that. If you recognize what that is, hey, good for you. If you don't, you'll find out pretty soon. So it's not going to end for a little while longer, okay? Simple fact of the matter is I don't have the time to deal with it, and I want to have a bigger pool of videos too. So let's see if we can get some more of them in there. And what this video is going to be is these clamps. Now there's a video on these clamps out there. I'll go ahead and annotate it here or somewhere around there. And what we're going to do is build a new set of these. And I'm going to make some improvements over this set. This was the very first set I ever built, and I've been using them for about, I guess 5 or 6 years now. But I've come up with a couple of ideas to make them a little bit better, and we're going to incorporate those ideas into the new ones. And to get started, I've got this this piece of oak I've had laying around for a while. And what I'm going to do is rip it into 1-inch long strips. Go take 2 of them off this board. And let me get that done and we'll get back with you. Alright, we'll get this turned on. Alright, obviously I used a table saw there, but most places you go to, like Home Depot or whatnot, if you can't find lumber, this is 3/4 by 1 inch, they'll usually make a cut for you. So you can go ahead and do that. Now what I'm going to do is cut them. I need 4. And I'm going to make these just a little bit longer than the set that I have over here. As far as the actual measurement goes, these originals here were 19 inches. These are what that was just happened to be the length of the wood I had. So I'm just going to bump them up to, I don't know. I guess we'll make them about 2 feet long. This will end up being able to make some big frames. So I'm going to take them over on the chop saw and cut 4 of them to 2 feet, or however it works out. I'm basically going to take these and cut them equally, and we'll see how it works out. Let me get them cut up, and I'll let you know how it worked. Okay, we're over here at the chop saw. Now, of course, you can use a hand saw. You don't have to have one of these. I'm just trying to get her done fast. And these are about, 57 3/4, I guess. So that would be what? Let's see, 25 would be 50. I don't want them any longer than 24 inches long. So we're going to go ahead and cut them to that. And there's actually a use for the leftover pieces, which I'll show you in a minute. So we'll mark these to 24. Now, does this part have to be absolutely dead perfect? No. Do we try for that? Yeah, absolutely. But when I say do they have to be perfect, I'm talking about for the functional aspect of them. No, they don't. So we're just kind of measuring them in on each other. And again, you know, if you don't have a chop saw, you can just use a hand saw. It's no big deal. It'll work. All right. So we've got these 4 pieces. And I have a later use for these guys. You'll see in a bit. Okay. On to measuring and drilling. Okay, here they are. All lined up nice and pretty. And what I'm going to do is throw a couple of clamps on here. Just so they don't move. That's all this is about, is just to keep them from moving while I make the marks and lines that are going to end up being these holes. Now, as you can see here, you know, this, one of the nice things about this project, this right here is pretty much the only crucial, if you want to call it that, measurement. And as you can see, the holes are roughly 1 inch apart. So that's what we're going to do. It's just going to go right down the center line here. Grab a pencil, preferably a sharp pencil. There we go. And we're just going to make marks at the 1 inch point. Now keep in mind, I said this had to be exact. Does each inch have to be within, you know, a 32nd of each other? No. But they should be the same. In other words, if you're 1/32 less than an inch or something like that, that's fine, as long as you're that way on all 4 of them. And again, it's not a break the bank kind of thing. It's better. And then what I'm going to do is take a little square and go ahead. Then on each one, mark the line. Now I won't bore you with the rest of the markings, but let me get all that done and we'll be right back to you. Alright, well here all we're doing is just drilling the holes. Now you can do this pretty much any way you want. It doesn't really matter. And the holes, I mean, again, if you're a millimeter or 2 off, no big giant problem. It's just easiest for me to do it this way in the drill press. And I won't bore you with blabbering through all of them. But the bottom line is just drill the holes. And yeah, you saw me mark them all. And you could even clamp them together and drill more than one at a time. They don't have to be perfect, they just got to be drilled out. You can even use a hand drill. I'll go ahead and get all of these done, and I'll be back in a minute. Alright, well, got going on here is just putting a quick sand on all of them. And like I said, these are not, you know, museum pieces. This is going to be a working tool. But the biggest reason, you know, you sand them down, make them smooth enough that they're going to operate well. And then as far as finish goes, we'll get into a little bit more later. But as you can see on this one, you're going to get little like glue globs and whatnot. So sanding it down, and then we'll put a little bit of some kind of finish on it, probably a polyurethane or something. That will ensure that, you know, the glue that's inevitably going to drip on these doesn't stick, and you can pop it back off. All right, let me get these sanded and we'll move on. Okay, got them sanded down as much as I'm going to worry about right now. And now comes time to make the crossbar, and that is that piece right there. Now on these, as you can see, well, I probably can't get it all in camera, but the bottom line is the new ones that we're making are quite a bit larger than these that I use. They're about probably 20% larger. So what I'm going to do is go from a 3.5 inch crossbar up into a 4. So I'm just going to run over to the chop saw, 4 inches, stack them, and then we'll drill these holes. Be right back. Alrighty, got these cut at 4 inches. Now there's an old rule of thumb that says you don't want to cut or drill holes any closer to an edge than the width, double the width of the drill you're using. So what I'm going to do, just to make this real simple, and you could do it, at home too, is I'm just going to line, to get this back in camera, I'm just going to line this up, this end piece, up and center it on one of the better centered holes I made here, drill it out on both sides, and that'll give me a look when it's installed that looks pretty good and should function pretty well too. So let me get that done. Just going to use the drill press. You saw, same idea as what I did here, so I'll be right back. Right, now we just got a quick little test fit. We've got 2 of our bars, and I've run some 1/4-20 screws up through there. I think these are like, let's take a peek. Don't always remember what everything was. And these are 2.5 inches long. So you run them up through, and here's our piece we just made. And that's going to work out just fine. Now we have 2 of them, obviously, and we're just going to run these together. Now this is hardly final assembly, so don't think that, but we're just cruising along here. So there you go. There's 1/2. Now comes the fun part. I actually am looking forward to this especially. These were the cleats that I had made originally for this one. And now they're working just fine. There's no problem with them. But instead of, the way I made these is I just set my table saw at a 45-degree angle and ran them through twice, just shy of the hole here, which is just, the center's right there. And I drilled the hole back just a little bit. And you'll see how they work later on in the video if you can't visualize it already. But the problem was this angle, while it was right, just didn't always work for every kind of frame or whatnot I was making. So I'm going to try something new with this set to see if I can fix that. So let's experiment together. All right. Hey, notice the difference? I found my little wide-angle lens, so now you get to see more of my cluttered work area. And what I got here, just a scrap piece of 3/4-inch plywood, because I was afraid with this design to put too much pressure on the clamps, because, whether you know or don't know, I'll just say this, regular wood that's not plywood is stronger against the grain than it's with the grain. And when you put pressure on these 2 points, the grain is running this way, and these can snap right off. I think I had it happen once over a few years on a really big piece. So we're going to make these not only out of the 3/4-inch plywood, but we're going to change the design a little bit. All right, first thing I need to do is these are a little over 2 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the table saw and rip a 2-inch section off of this and then cut the squares. And we'll be right back. Okie dokie. 2.5-inch squares by 2.5. Now the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and drill a hole in them, centered one direction but slightly closer to another edge. That's going to keep our mounting hole, let me keep it right in the frame there, Toad. That's going to keep our mounting hole out of the way of where the project that's mounted in the clamps will actually be. So, I know everybody's going to want measurements, I do so much of this stuff by eye, especially with these rougher tools. Let's call that, well, we'll go about 7/8 of an inch from one edge. And using the same bits that we've been using, we'll get these holes right here made. Be back in a second. Okie dokie. Now, we had little squares with the hole in them. And we're trying to replicate something like that, but a little bit better. So the first thing I did was took a paddle bit like this one and drilled a hole almost dead center between these two. Just kind of eyeballed it. And you'll see why in just a second. Then, now I did this on my table saw, but you can do this with a hand saw or even with a jigsaw or whatever. And I just made little 45-degree cuts here. Now, could they be a little bigger? Maybe, but keep in mind, you're just trying to catch the corners of the work. But the plywood being dimensionally stable, I think it will be just a better part, better wood, style of wood to use for this. So let me get the rest of it done, and the rest of the other three, and we'll do a practice assembly. All right, well, here's the first test fitting of the ones that are going to go in the prize pack. Well, here's one half of the older one, the ones that I still use. And you can see, you know, it's used. And here's the newer one, the updated version. Pretty much exactly the same thing, just a little bit bigger, which means, of course, you're going to be able to do a lot larger projects, big picture frames. Perhaps even, if you have a couple sets of these, you could even use them for light-duty cabinet making. So all that's left to do now is to go ahead and take them all apart and do a final sanding, a little bit of shaping. I'll probably round off some corners here on the belt sander, whatever, just to make it a little smoother and easier to use. And I'll throw a finish on them. I've decided I'm probably going to go ahead and put a polyurethane on them, just what I have here. And we'll come back when they're all put together and ready to go. We'll show them to you. Okie dokie. Well, here's one assembled. And let me show you how the other one goes together real quick. And, you know, I changed my mind about putting a finish on them. I decided that, you know, whoever gets these, because yes, these are going to go into the box of prizes for the contest, they can do what they want with them. You know, I'm not going to limit somebody, the new owner, based on, you know, my preference. All right, so there you go. You got, put the machine screw up through there with a washer, another washer. There's a spacer bar. And as soon as the wing nut cooperates, which of course as I got the camera on, it won't. Anyway, there you go. Now, I mentioned the contest. I know some of y'all are wondering about the contest because I said it was going to end in early April. Well, oops. No, it's not. It's going to go on a little bit longer. And the reason being is I have just got a bunch of stuff to do. And, you know, I want the grab bag, if you will, of prizes to have, you know, more than just a couple things in it. So I'm going to let it keep going. And you can look at the original video, which I'll annotate somewheres over there, you know, like I always do. And enter the contest. Have some fun. I've got a few entries now, and there's some really neat projects in there. And that's the whole idea of the contest, obviously, if you've watched the other video, is to give people ideas for stuff that they can make. Useful stuff, you know? Okay, so there's the bar. These are back on the 7th hole. So I'm going to go ahead and count back 7 from here, just for symmetry, and on go. I don't know, I guess you call them the clamps themselves. I don't have official names for them. And in case anybody's curious where this idea come from, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you know, I thought it up in a fit of genius at some point in time. The truth of the matter is I was reading a book by a Frenchman. I believe his name is Mattei, and the book was written back in the 70s, and it was all about, no, I can't talk and count at the same time. It was all about different little things you can do on board boats to make your life a little easier aboard. And in the very back of that book was the design for something similar to these. And I just saw that and went, wow, that's cool. I need to have something like that. And there they are. Brandy dandy new set that's going to go to somebody. I am going to do a little bit towards the end, at the end of the video, show you how to work them. But for now, that's how they look. I've got some other stuff I'm going to do. On your video, it's going to look like I just went poof, poof, and came right back. But I've actually got a whole bunch of other stuff to do here. And as soon as I get a chance to turn the camera back on, I'll find something to throw inside here or the other set just to give you an idea how they work and how versatile they are here. All right, I'll be back in a few minutes. All right, now I'll try and keep this as short as I can, but this is just a quick deal on how they work. We're going to pretend that you just cut the pieces for this frame, just made the 45s, and we're going to pretend that they're loose. And the idea is to be able to clamp that all together with even pressure, so the glue joints in this case, or biscuit joints if it's much bigger, can dry evenly. So I'm just going to go through this real quick. The first thing I'm going to do is move the clamp pieces, which they're really not in frame. These things are huge, so it's hard to keep them in frame. I'm going to move these pieces down closer into this area so we can get the clamping started. Alrighty, well, we've taken our camera down off the tripod here, and you can see how each corner nestles into right there, as opposed to, let's get my old version here. Now see, the old one, when it got used, it had to be perfect. I mean, just flat out perfect. With these, you get a little more wiggle room, because the pressure points are here and it leaves the corner open. Now, in case you haven't figured it out, let me grab a clamp here. You get a wide angle view of what I'm using as a table right now. Oh. And this is just, you know, one of the Irwin, I don't know, handy clamps, squeeze clamps, whatever you want to call them. Get it sized out right. Put it on there. And squish. Make sure that you're got them in a nice even spot. And with just gentle pressure, it puts perfect pressure on all four corners. Now, that's just fine if you're building something that has, you know, that's empty. But because it comes apart, if you have something like a door frame, you know, like a cabinet door, or a, oh, I don't know, a box top, box bottom, whatever, all you do is take these bars off and reverse them on the bottom, flip the whole thing upside down, and clamp it from the bottom. Piece of cake. It works just fine. And as you can see, that particular piece, you can hear my roommate moving around. She's trying to stay out of here while I'm doing this. This particular piece that's in here is a foot, so 12 inches by about 9.5. And if I pull back out, you can see how big of a piece you can actually put in these things. It looks like it'll get out, oh, let's see, well in excess of 2 feet. Let's see how big it'll actually get. You can have something, probably in the ballpark of 3 foot by 3 foot, perhaps even larger, and still run. And the cool thing about this, and I've done this before, let's say you have something really big. I had to make a screen door for somebody, and I wanted to see if this would work. You can actually take these pieces out, put loops of 550 cord as long as you want, which will of course allow this to spread out. And you can just get huge stuff in one of these. So this is a fun little tool, and it's going in the box of prizes for the contest, these exact ones. As a quick note, if you're just watching this video and you want to make your own, these fittings here are all stainless steel, and it's just wing nuts. Let me get one of these off of here. One washer there, you can see. One washer in between. And they're just machine screws with a washer. Now, why are they so long? Well, let's say you want to build like something like a cigar box or a presentation case for a pistol, which I've done a bunch of. Having the longer screws allows you to put a spacer under here and actually lift this part up a little bit. So if you have a box that's, you know, say a couple, 2 or 3 inches tall, and you want to make absolute sure that you cut it right, you know, you clamp it right in the middle, then you can lift this up a good half, 3/4 of an inch here by putting spacers inside. That's what that length will allow you to do. You can see how much they stick up. So you can run it up a little bit higher. Also, if you have 2 sets of these, then you can make big boxes. You can clamp them easily top and bottom, and there's a chance you might see that coming up in the future. I have some other projects. But these are the pieces. It's now done. This is the actual one, like I said, that's going in the prize package. I was going to go ahead and put a finish on it, and I just decided not to, because the new owner may decide to paint it. I'm just going to let them just do what they want to do. Also, in my old ones here, you can see that the washers are all gone. You know, I'm going to go ahead and include the washers just the way I had it originally and let the new owner have the pleasure of losing them, because that's what happened to me. Maybe you're just more careful than I am. Now, the last thing I'll tell you about these, if you encounter any problem with them tightening up, little Vaseline does the job just fine. Piece of cake. Well, hey, thanks for coming along. And as I said, the contest is going to go on a little bit longer, and there'll be some new projects coming out. And until then, fair winds. Thanks for coming along. We'll see you next time.